Good evening to everyone in the gallery joining us online this evening. I welcome you to the May 2025 Maribyrnong Council meeting. My name is Pradeep Tiwari. I'm the Mayor of the City of Maribyrnong, and I declare the meeting open at 6:32 p.m. Maribyrnong City Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land, the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung and Boon Wurrung Boonwurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation, and pays its respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'd like to request everyone to please mute your phones. It's a timely reminder. I advise that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Whilst all care is taken to maintain the privacy of members of the gallery, your presence at times may be recorded. In accordance with Council's governance rules, I advise that this meeting may not be photographed, filmed or recorded without the consent of the Chief Executive Officer. I advise there are no apologies for tonight's meeting. Councillors, are there any leave of absence requests? No. In accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, do any councillors have a conflict of interest in relation to any of their agenda items? No. We have for the CEO, we do have and a conflict of interest for one of the items.
I do have a conflict for the last. Yes, thank you, Mayor. I do have a conflict for the last item on the agenda.
Thank you. So the Chief Executive Officer will leave the meeting during consideration of that confidential item. We'll now move on to public question time. Public question time is managed in accordance with Council's governance rules. Members of the public can submit a maximum of 3 questions prior to the commencement of the meeting. As Chair, I will decide who answers the question. Public question time is limited to 15 minutes unless councillors consent to an extension. So we've received 18 public questions. So let's start off with question 1, sent by Fadhullah Yusuf, who asks the following questions. Question 1. Can the Council please explain why I have been issued an infringement notice for installing artificial grass on my own property, despite there being no provisions at the Council, State or Federal level that prohibit such installations? Might hand it to you, CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, an infringement notice has been issued due to the failure to comply with endorsed landscape plan and conditions on a planning permit.
Thank you. And question number 2, I am aware of numerous other properties within the Maribyrnong City Council area, including kindergartens, schools and private residences that have artificial grass installed. Why have I been singled out for enforcement action when others have not been subject to similar scrutiny? Back to you, CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, Mr. Yusuf, the planning permit did require you to keep the artificial grass, to remove the artificial grass, and that is why enforcement action has been taken on this matter as it relates to non-compliance with the endorsed landscape plan and conditions on the approved planning permit, which governs the use and development of that land, that piece of land. Not all pieces of land, that piece of land.
Thank you. We'll move on to submission number 2 from Lizel Thomas, who asks the following questions. Question 1, is Council intending to apply for a grant under the 2025 grant round of the Victorian Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action Air Quality Improvements Precinct Program? Hand it to you, CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we certainly are, Ms Thomas. Council welcomes the release of the Air Quality Improvement Precincts grants for 2025, and we're in the process of assessing the grant guidelines and their alignment with actions identified within Council's Air Quality Improvement Plan and other relevant strategies. We're in contact with various stakeholders, including community groups, universities and neighbouring councils, to identify possible initiatives to propose for that funding.
Thank you. The question number 2 is, if so, is Council intending to make a co-contribution to the project, noting that applications that demonstrate co-contributions will be prioritised? Back to you, CEO.
Through you, Mayor. Yes, we are considering the planned capital works and operational programs for Council in 25-26, and to identify potential initiatives that could be applied for under the grant, including the potential for any co-contributions. Council's contribution will likely be in kind through officer time to coordinate and deliver initiatives. Additional financial contributions will be dependent on the chosen project and its inclusion in the proposed 2025-26 budget.
Thank you. We'll move on to question number 3 from Jade Owen, who asks the following questions. Question 1, what is the Council actively doing on behalf of the community to deal with the blatant drug and alcohol criminal activity that is stemming from the Unison housing on Buckley Street? Over to you, CEO.
Through you, Mayor, and I would just point out that the Jade's question is more of an allegation than there is an allegation there in terms of criminal activity, but I haven't had that confirmed. But in terms of a response, as you would all know, community safety is a high priority for Council, and we're working closely with Victoria Police, who play a lead role in providing for a safe city for our residents and visitors. Our local laws teams regularly attend the Unison Precinct to identify breaches, including abandoned vehicles, unsightly properties and other law breaches. Regarding any criminal activity observed, this is within the realm of the police, and it can be reported to Crime Stoppers via 1800 333 000 or via www.crimestoppersvic.com.au. And of course, if you or any residents are in an emergency and require immediate police attendance, please contact 000 immediately.
Thank you for that. The question number 2 is what progress is being made with the meetings that is held apparently monthly between the police, the council and Unison, and are these reports available to be accessed by the wider community?
Through you, Mayor, I will just confirm there are no monthly formal meetings held between police, Unison and council. There are numerous meetings held with police and also with Unison, but not formal monthly meetings. The Victoria Police hold community safety meetings that include members of the community, council and various services, and reports are not drafted as part of these meetings. In addition to the community safety meetings, council also meets with Victoria Police monthly. In fact, the Mayor and I do meet with senior members of Victoria Police to discuss a range of matters that may be impacting our local government area. And as I said, there are no monthly meetings held between police, Unison and council together with the operators of Unison. We do have scheduled regular meetings with Unison between council officers and Unison Housing.
Thank you. And question 3 is, since Unison Buckley Street facilities were established, the crime rate in Seddon has an increase of 78.07%, 2023 to 2024. How is this sustainable for both the police and residents who have to deal with the consequences, and what is the council going to do to address this?
Well, through you, Mayor, council continues to advocate for community safety through regular meetings with the state government and Victoria Police. While addressing it is primarily the responsibility of the state government and Victoria Police, we are collaborating with Victoria Police to support effective solutions. And again, I would say the Mayor and I are meeting at the highest levels with our regional police.
Thank you. And we'll move on to submission 4, which is asked by Brian Saunderson. Question 1, referring to the draft 2025-26 budget, it is difficult to differentiate which capital projects are funded entirely by council via rates and which have been part funded by developer contributions as part of that plan, for which council collects funds. Can you please advise what projects from the DCP have been completed, what projects are underway, and what projects are yet to commence, and their estimated delivery timeframe?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, there are a total of 193 projects from which council's developer contribution plans have been part funded. Council has completed 83 projects at a cost of $115 million, with work in progress on 3 projects. The remaining 107 are yet to be completed up to 2051. And I will point out that the developer contribution plan does not fund the whole of the project. In the current year, 24-25, Council is spending $4.73 million from developer contributions on the following projects: the Josephs Road reconstruction and the Bunbury Street upgrade, DCP project, and it's an access road. Council intends to fund $31.688 million from council reserves or capital, and $1.7 million from developer contributions in the 25-26 budget. DCP collections are small contributions toward the cost of projects over the next 2 years, and generally, Mayor, they will cover up to 20% or less of the cost. Over the next 30 years, I'm sorry. Thank you. I'll just read that again. DCP collections are small contributions toward the costs of projects over the next 30 years. The proposed projects to be partially funded by the developer contributions next year are as follows: Josephs Road Precinct detailed design, fence at Medway Golf Course, Bunbury Street upgrade DCP project, Barclay Village and Clark Street park improvements in West Footscray, Hanson Reserve Pavilion development, Hamner Reserve disability ramp design and construction, Stony Creek Trail construction, Waratah Street to Roberts Street, the Western Lawn event space infrastructure, and road reconstruction rehabilitation program at Knox Street, Yarraville. The last one there is the Footscray Park Ponds landscaping and remedial works year 2. So it's anticipated that the projects listed above will be delivered within the 25-26 financial year.
Thank you for listing all that. And their question number 2 is, can you please advise how much of the total DCP has been collected and what is still to be collected, both is monetary terms and as a percentage?
Based on the development data, through you, Mayor, used to create this DCP, it's estimated that approximately $45.5 million may be collected by the DCP up to 2051. This represents 31.6% of the estimated costs of the scheduled DCP projects, and all the DCP projects are signed off by the Minister for Planning.
Thank you. We'll move on to submission question number 5, sent in by Tim Laurie. First question, does the council know at the Yarraville Railway Station, Anderson Street railway boom gates that daily some people are risking their life crossing the tracks on red signals?
Through you, Mayor, and I am certainly concerned if people are crossing on red signals. Railway crossings are certainly dangerous intersections, and council would strongly encourage all people to cross safely. Protective Services officers do patrol Yarraville, but we are aware that they cannot be there at all times. I understand the state government is considering the removal of this crossing for vehicles, which is broadly welcomed, and we look forward to better understanding what options the state will consider into the future. But I will just reiterate that the Yarraville Railway Station is within the remit of the state government.
Thank you. And the question 2 is, does the council acknowledge this situation is a significant risk to train drivers, the local families and community, and that implementing an interim solution for a pedestrian crossing in collaboration with the state government is a priority to avoid a tragedy, irrespective of the Anderson Street level crossing project?
Through you, Mayor, certainly yes, the behaviour does present a significant risk to those who choose to cross in this way. And council acknowledges the potential impact on train drivers and the broader community. We're happy to raise this again with the relevant authority, and my understanding is the level crossing works at Yarraville are programmed in the state program for 2029-30.
Thank you. And the final question is, what actions will council take immediately with the state government to reinvigorate a build of the interim railway crossing for pedestrians near Yarraville Railway Station? Please articulate action and by when.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, council is currently seeking to meet the level crossing removal authority to ascertain again, the timeframes proposed to improve the safety of this level crossing. We are yet to have found an agreed meeting date, and I will say, Mayor, we have sought a meeting for some time, but we're not giving up on that. We will continue to ask for that meeting. As it's a state government managed asset and site, our role will be to advocate on behalf of the local community for the most appropriate design that responds to and achieves maximum community safety, accessibility and overall benefit to the Yarraville shopping village and community.
Thank you. We'll move on to submission question number 6 by Madeline Searle, who asks the following questions. First question, would Council please disclose the nature and scope of its options for flood mitigation scoping or implementation being considered for application to the Disaster Ready Fund?
Through you, Mayor. The Disaster Ready Fund, the DRF, is the Australian Government's flagship initiative for disaster resilience and risk reduction. Key objectives of the DRF are to understand disaster impacts, enhance resilience and reduce exposure to risk. Round 3 of the DRF will provide up to 200 million of Australian Government investment in 25-26. Council has submitted applications for 3 projects in April 2025 to accommodate the closing date for Round 3 DRF. And those are to commission a study to identify flooding hotspots and recommendation for remedial treatments utilising flood modelling, to provide smart stormwater and flood monitoring sensors in targeted locations across the city, and to implement a drainage improvement capital works project in Little Smith Street, Yarraville. Applications are currently under review by Emergency Management Victoria and the Australian Government, and we also work closely with Melbourne Water on mitigation. Mayor.
Thank you. And second question is concerning question 1, would Council please confirm it will publicly disclose details of the discussion following the meeting with the Emergency Management Victoria? Back to you.
Through you, Mayor. Council staff met in February with Emergency Management Victoria staff, coordinating the Disaster Ready Fund grant to best understand what types of projects could be considered under the Disaster Ready Fund. We generally wouldn't respond on negotiations around that point, but would be happy to meet again with Ms Searle in regard to any queries she's got.
Thank you, and I've just been notified that we're going over at time, so I might request for an extension of public question time. And with the consent of Council, I wish to propose an extension to public question time of 15 minutes. Councillors, do I have your consent? Thank you, Councillors. We'll now continue with the public question time. And question three is concerning question 1 and 2. Would Council please establish a process for public consultation to enable reasonable time for the general community to review of the scope and nature of the mitigation works proposed by Council before any lodgement and application to the Disaster Ready Fund endorsed, supported or made by state government and its statutory agencies?
Through you, Mayor, applications have already been lodged on the 16th of April 2025 to accommodate the closing date for Round 3 Disaster Ready Fund. If successful, Council will set up certainly the appropriate governance arrangements in line with its project management framework, including community engagement.
Thank you. We'll move on to submission 7 from Edward Merrifield, who asks the following questions. Question 1, currently a lot of jobs are being advertised on Maribyrnong City Council Recruitment Online Jobs Hub's webpage. What is the need for recruitment when we have staff acting in those positions, or are we seeking recruitment from other councils giving the high rates in pay rates?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. Vacant positions at Council are always advertised through our transparency policy, and we meet equity requirements and gender requirements around legislative expectations. Vacant positions are all advertised to ensure the best candidate for the role is appointed. In some positions, we do have to place acting people in those roles because where we can, if the job can be held over, it will, but generally we need somebody doing that work. Positions may be backfilled until the recruitment process is completed, ensuring continuity of service to our community and providing current staff with development opportunities.
Thank you. And question number 2 is regarding Market Street West Footscray Road closure. In light of new information that Woolworths is opening up, how will traffic congestion be affected in Barclay Street and surrounding streets?
Through you, Mayor, Council has engaged an independent traffic consultant to prepare a traffic impact assessment report to inform Council's decision on the Market Street closure. This report will include assessment of relevant land use, traffic and planning considerations. And I will point out, Mayor, there was a traffic management study done in regard to Market Street, but at that time the Woolworths application had not been proceeded with.
Thank you. And final question for public question time, I believe, is what updates have happened in Footscray CBD in the last 2 months, and what has Council done to address homelessness and antisocial behaviour, and what activities are planned for the traders to revitalise the CBD?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. In recent months, the Council has been involved in a number of activities in an effort to activate and revitalise Footscray CBD for all users. These include ongoing stakeholder collaboration, working in partnership with state government, Victoria Police, community service organisations, local business and community members, as well as trader organisations, to understand the issues in greater detail and explore possible solutions together. We've established a homelessness response group, leading the Maribyrnong homelessness response for coordinated community service efforts. We have ongoing community support, providing significant support for events and festivals, resulting in a 30% increase in local spending from 2019 to the end of 2024. The Creative Places program is transforming vacant properties into creative spaces for artists and creative businesses to showcase their works from December 2024 to March 2025. Public domain improvements include regular cleaning, waste and graffiti removal and installation of festoon lighting in Nicholson Street for Little Africa. And we have upgraded local laws, establishing regular walkthroughs of the CBD area by our local laws officers, assisting those in need and providing advice for relevant social services.
Thank you. And that concludes our public question time. Thank you to all the submitters, and public question time is now closed at 6:55 p.m. We'll move on to agenda item 6.1, which is confirmation of minutes from 15th April 2025. I call for a councillor to move the motion. Councillor Lamb.
That council office recommendation that council confirm the minute of the council meeting of 15 April 2025.
Thank you. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Meredith. I'll now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried. I advise councillors that there are no reports from committees to be tabled at the meeting. We'll move on to petitions. Council has received 2 petitions for this evening's council meeting. I remind councillors that in accordance with council's governance rules, a councillor may read the petition text but is not permitted to speak to the petition. Agenda item 8.1, petition implementing permit-only parking on White Street. I call for a councillor to move the motion. Councillor Semra.
That council receives and notes the petition implementing permit-only parking on White Street and requests the Chief Executive Officer to consider the petition and determine the appropriate response.
Thank you. I'll call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Thomas. I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Move on to agenda item 8.2, petition, public toilet in Beaton Reserve, Yarraville. I call for a councillor to move the motion. Councillor Yengi. Yeah, please.
That council receives and notes the petition requesting petition public toilet Beaton Reserve, Yarraville. That council requests the Chief Executive Officer to consider the petition and determine the appropriate response.
Thank you. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Pereira. I put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried. We'll now move on to the officer reports. And agenda item 9.1, quarterly performance and financial report for the period ending 31st of March 2025. I call for a councillor to move the motion. Councillor Yengi.
That council notes the quarterly performance and financial report for the period ending 31st of March 2025, shown at attachment 1.
Thank you. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Meredith. Are there any questions or points of clarification? No. Would the mover like to speak to the motion? No. Okay. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion? Okay. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No. I'll now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Now move on to agenda item 9.2, naming proposal for the Community Park, Civic Precinct and Community Hub. I call for a councillor to move the motion. Councillor Thomas.
That Council 1 approves in principle the proposed name Balit Barungagat Banhul for the new community park within the Civic Precinct and Community Hub, 61 Napier Street, Footscray. 2, endorses the commencement of community engagement, which includes publication in a local newspaper, a notice on Council's website, a survey via Council's website, and a survey sent to surrounding properties. 3, following completion of the community engagement process and subject to no objections being received, formally endorses the proposed name Balit Bagun Gagat Banhul and authorises the Chief Executive Officer or their delegate to submit the proposed name to Geographic Names Victoria for registration. And 4, notes that if one or more objections are received following the completion of the community engagement process, a further report will be presented to Council outlining the objections and recommending next steps for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas, and real good attempt at that name twice, so well done. I'd call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Semra. Are there any questions or points of clarification? No. Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I will. Thanks, Mayor. Just want to say what a gift this is to be given this name by the Wurundjeri Corporation. In the planning and the thinking around the new hub and particularly the park out the front, the previous it was really important that from the idea from the previous council that First Nations would be sort of front and centre, particularly in the open space area. And we've got the beautifully designed yarning circle out the front, which we know people of all cultures are using. Right from day one, people were out there sitting yarning in the yarning circle. So that was really lovely to see. We've used, of course, some locally Indigenous plants out there, but, other natives. And having this gift from the Wurundjeri of the naming of the park is, I think, something that we should all be really proud of, that they have taken the time to work with our council officers to give us that the name. And I'm just going to read it off the report. It translates as to strong people linked together, community, and park in the Warrarung language. So I really hope we don't get any objections to this name, because it is, this is our civic and community sort of heart of the municipality, and it's really great to have a name that is so fitting in Warrarung language. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Councillor Thomas. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion? Councillor Simler? Okay. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No. I'll now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. We'll move on to agenda item 9.3, Community Grants Program 2025 to 2026 Initiation Report. I call for a councillor to move the motion. Councillor Lamb? Sorry, councillor, could you put your mic on?
That council, number one, not the initiations of the 2025 and 26 Community Grant Program. Number two, endorse the Community Grant Program Guideline 2025-26 shown at attachment 1. And number three, note that the current membership of Council Community Grant Program Independent Review Panel and its Festival and Vegetation Advisory Panel will be extended for a further year.
Thank you, Councillor Lam. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Yengi. Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Oh, yes, let's briefly. I think community grant is very important for the community, and it provided the community. I would encourage the community to apply, to use that as, have the community service working together, building resilient and strengthening network with the community and supporting community connected and well-being. Intercultural connectivity for the council, for this is council support that is provide that sort of significant input and for the community to have the opportunity to let go and freely and do some projects like that. It's important.
Thank you, Councillor Lam. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion? Thank you. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Okay. I'll now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Moving on to agenda item 9.4, Governance Report for April 2025. I call for a councillor to move the motion. Councillor Yengi.
That council notes the April 2025 governance report.
Thank you. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Meredith. Would the mover like to speak to the motion? No. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion? No. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No. I'll now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Moving on to agenda item 9.5, Council Support and Expenses Report, January 2025 to March 2025. I call for a councillor to move the motion. Councillor Semra.
The council notes the council support and expenses report for the January 2025 to March 2025 period, showing at attachment 1 to be made available on council's website for the term of council.
Thank you, Councillor Semra. I'd like to call, I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Thomas. Would the mover like to speak to the motion? No. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion? Please, Councillor Thomas.
Yep.
Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No. I'll now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. We'll now move on to notices of motion. Agenda item 10.1, Notice of Motion 2025/05, Public Transport Interchange Investments for Footscray CBD. I call for Councillor Elena Pereira to move the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. That Council acknowledges Footscray as a long-established activity centre and major transport hub in Melbourne's west is long overdue for commensurate investment in quality public transport interchange, integrating train, tram and bus infrastructure to unlock Footscray's full potential and serve its rapidly growing community. 2, notes the long-standing failure to deliver a dedicated public transport interchange in Footscray is compromising other investment opportunities and livability. 3, recognises that the absence of a coordinated interchange continues to negatively impact commuters, wayfinding and accessibility, active transport links, and transport connectivity across the Western Metro region, and that the absence of a well-integrated interchange continues to cause poor multimodal transport integration, unsafe and disconnected pedestrian and cycling links, C, increased traffic congestion and reliance on private vehicles and parking, D, inequitable access to employment, education and essential services for communities within Maribyrnong and for those from elsewhere, and E, poor public transport connectivity to the new Footscray Hospital, and poor integration across the Footscray Learning Precinct. And 4, calls on the Victorian State Government and relevant ministers to A, urgently prioritise and commit new funding to deliver the Footscray Public Transport Interchange, B, review the State Government's existing project feasibility for bus interchange and progress with design and community consultation to commence implementation in 2026-27, C, provide a clear timeline to Council for consultation, planning and construction, and D, engage with Council, local stakeholders and community members in the design process to ensure the project meets the needs of all users. 5, writes to local members of Parliament, state and federal, and the Minister for Public and Active Transport, requesting urgent action and collaboration to ensure this vital infrastructure is delivered without further delay.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira.
Thank you.
I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Thomas. Are there any questions or points of clarification? No. Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Sure, just briefly, since the motion was so long, but I think investment in Footscray's public transport interchange is not just about mobility, it's about creating economic opportunity, a safer and more vibrant public space, and inclusive access to employment, education, and civic and cultural life. As you can see in the background, there's been several master plans, structure plans, and feasibility studies undertaken for over a decade, which noted that high-quality transport interchange would be a key transformative project for Footscray, and it's long overdue for implementation. The Footscray train station is often cited as the busiest outside the CBD, but that commuter population is not translating into civic and economic vibrancy in the Footscray Activity Centre. Irving Street has been identified in our road audit as being in need of repair, and this means Council is about to spend money on work that could be ripped up if the interchange is to be undertaken. Due to the distribution of bus stops and tram stops across Footscray, there are several streets that there are a few streets that don't require integration with the Department of Transport, which makes it hard for Council to prioritise urban realm renewal works that are desperately needed and desired by our community. Investment into the public transport interchange will allow Council to commence essential urban renewal through public realm investment, urban greening and placemaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I'll just say a couple of things. Yes, because it was a very nice, long and detailed motion. I just wanted to say, this has been on the list of projects for a really long time. And I think, state government's kind of promises to act is really letting down our community and those who would come to visit the area. We know that thousands of people use the area every day. It's the public transport gateway to our city, yet its functionality isn't really inviting for visitors or locals to Footscray. It offers them instead a sort of a confused entry into our municipality. And what we really need, what our community really needs, is investment that says we care about Central Footscray, that says we want you to connect easily with work and shopping and health facilities and study, that says to the traders, we value your investment and we're going to make it easy for your customers to reach you. And without a coordinated interchange, we're not allowing Footscray to thrive, Central Footscray to thrive in the way that we know it could. So we call on the state government to start the investment and let's get Footscray thriving.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Okay, we'll go in order. Councillor Semra first.
Yep. Yeah, I'll just reiterate sentiments of fellow councillors. I think a well-planned interchange improves pedestrian safety and accessibility for all, including seniors, parents, and people with disabilities. And, you know, Footscray's role as an education and employment corridor is growing, especially with Victoria University and local industries. A better interchange means more inclusive, equitable access for job seekers, students, and residents from outer west. And I guess investing now means preparing for a growing population while ensuring Footscray remains livable and accessible, and we can keep up with the foot traffic with the obvious, you know, new development happening in the area.
Thank you, Councillor Semra. Councillor Yengi.
Thank you. I'll just say a couple of words, basically kind of echoing what my fellow councillors have said. I guess as one of the busiest and most vital transit hubs outside of the Melbourne CBD, and as the gateway to the west, this project is really critical for our region. This investment goes far beyond just efficiency and access. It is essential to improving livability, safety and accessibility for tens and thousands of residents and commuters in the broader west. I'd also like to thank our local member, Katie Hall, who has supported this project since inception, securing funding for the initial feasibility study and costings, and has subsequently advocated to the Minister through numerous budget bids to have this project funded. Like my fellow councillors, I'm urging, we call on the state government to urgently commit funding to deliver this critical infrastructure and respond to the growing demands of our rapidly evolving region.
Thank you, Councillor Yengi. We'll just wait a moment. Councillor Meredith.
Well, I think my fellow councillors have said it all, really. Footscray is expected to see significant growth in population, and I think that we really need this investment in Footscray. It's extremely important, and I'd love to see the funding from state government come forward for our community.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Okay. I'll now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We'll now move on to councillor question time. Councillor question time is managed in accordance with councillors' governance rules. Councillor question time is limited to 15 minutes unless councillors consent to an extension. Are there any councillor questions? Councillor Meredith?
Infrastructure Victoria's draft 30-year strategy includes 43 recommendations to guide growth and infrastructure delivery. What key priorities does Council believe the state government should focus on to ensure infrastructure keeps pace with housing growth and community needs?
Thank you, Councillor Meredith. I might ask the CEO to answer that.
Right. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Meredith, for the question. Council believes that a key priority of the state government should be to establish a fairer developer contribution plan, and we did put this in our submission. A fairer framework to ensure that developers and government contribute to the cost of infrastructure and services needed for new developments. And as I mentioned earlier in an earlier question, the DCP doesn't cover much of the cost of the future projects for council. The main elements of DCP would include the establishment of contribution rates, identification of infrastructure needs, prioritisation of works aligned with the pace of development, and an equitable cost-sharing approach, ensuring the costs of any new infrastructure are shared fairly between developers, state government and the wider community. The implementation of such a DCP framework should be in partnership between state and local government via a shared 10-year capital delivery program, and we certainly did make that clear in our submission.
Thank you, CEO. Are there any other councillor questions? Councillor Meredith?
Yep, thank you. One more question. The bus stop outside St Monica's Primary School on Hopkins Street can see up to 30 people jumping off on a narrow footpath beside a very busy arterial road, creating safety risks. What actions has Council taken to advocate for improvements at this location? Thank you.
I'll ask the CEO to answer that.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Meredith. Hopkins Street, I think as everyone knows, is a state-owned and managed asset. Council recognises the hazardous nature of this area due to a narrow footpath, the lack of an indented bus stop and minimal space at the Whitehall Street crossing lights. Council has previously advocated to the state government for upgrades to Hopkins Street and improved road safety outcomes, which resulted in speed limits reduced to 40 kilometres an hour last year. Council staff are currently working with the Department of Transport and Planning on developing a design for Hopkins Street that aims to provide safer conditions for all road users.
Thank you, CEO. Any further questions, councillors? No. So councillor question time is now closed. We'll move on to urgent business. Councillors, are there any items of urgent business? No. Okay. We'll move on to confidential business. You need to read the motion?
I think it's
There's
just
no
to
motion,
close the
okay.
meeting.
Just to close the motion, that's fine. Call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Yengi, I put the motion to a vote. I declare the motion carried. The meeting is closed to the public at 7:19 p.m. and ask the public to leave the chamber and governance to pause the live stream. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for vacating and coming back. And I advise that in accordance with the confidential resolution, no part of the report or the resolution is to be released to the public. And that's all for our meeting tonight, and I declare the meeting closed at 7:25 p.m. Thank you, everyone.